Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. PRS.
All right, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week. It's time for some more PSGL. Today we arrive at China for the 11th round of this 12-round season, which means it is the penultimate round of the season here in PSGL PlayStation F2. I'm your race commentator, More Games, and glad to be back for another round in this great division. As you can see, championship standings on your screen, and NLR Urpek has now wrapped up this championship. The only way Keke could win is if he won both races and got the fastest lap point in one, which, credit to NLR Keke for being P2 in the Drivers' Championship, but I don't think even NLR Urpek could win 2 races in a row like that. So Urpek is probably going to be crowned champion officially. He'll probably be crowned champion tonight by the fact that there'll be too big a gap between himself and Keke for Keke to mathematically be able to close it down. So great job from Urpek this season. Obviously, last race was probably his worst performance, or in fact, it was his worst performance in this season, coming P15 in Mexico due to an incident earlier on in the race, and obviously no safety car meant he was pretty much stuck at the back of the field for the entire Grand Prix. But we now move in to the qualifying session. You can see the drivers getting themselves out on circuit to set their first lap times at this Chinese circuit. And obviously China isn't on the official F1 calendar, but it is in the game, and I know that PSGL does like to throw it into the calendar every now and again, and this is one of those seasons where we get to see it being used. Another thing we get to see being used is the custom cars once again. I believe the patch is out tomorrow for the cars being fixed, so that we can go back to the F1 23 cars at least for next week. But for this week, we'll still be on these custom cars, so you get to see these liveries once again. And it might also confuse me like it did last week as to where everyone is on the minimap, but you can see ET8 Dark currently on a lap, and he's actually in an F1 23 car. You can see using a Williams livery here. And he is currently coming through the middle sector of the lap time, and he's going to be one of the first drivers to set a lap time in this session. But one of the big difficulties with having these custom cars, as it has been apparent not only in PSGL but plenty of other leagues, is that you don't actually know who your teammate is. So when it comes to the pit stops, you may come into pit lane and someone else might be your teammate, and you'd never know that, and you end up double stacking. So it's definitely unfortunate that we have to use these cars, but hopefully this will be the last race where we do have to use them. You can see ETA Dark coming down into this next hairpin as Will Murdoch sets the fastest time and the first time of the session. It's a 1:30.7 for the F2 legend, and he gets beaten actually by Parnell Racing Knoll, who goes to be 1:30.6. Let's see what Dark can do. It's looking good from him so far, and it's very, very good. In fact, it's a 1:30.1 from ETA Dark. He goes 5/10 quicker than Parnell Racing Knoll, and you might remember last week Parnell Racing Knoll in that battle for pole position. So ETA Dark displaying some fantastic pace early on in this session. We'll try to find someone else to ride on board with. OP Max van de Geest is heading out of the middle sector of the lap time at 50.7 through the first 2 sectors. Now he's just got to end it off with these final 2 braking zones before he sets his banker time in this session. You can see so far 7 drivers with times, and they're all relatively close, apart from ET8 Dark being the obvious outlier in this situation, being half a second ahead of everyone else. So I mean, that is an absolutely beautiful lap time to set at the beginning of the session. But let's see what OP Max van der Gies can do relative to that time. Can he get himself close to it, as Diogo Silva has been able to get quite close to it. 3/10 is the difference, and now Max van der Gies goes 7/1000ths quicker than Diogo Silva to have a very similar time. Then his Outplay Racing teammate Covers goes to P2 with a 30.3. So they're definitely getting close that time, but still, even after all these drivers setting their times, ETA Dark is quite a bit ahead, 2/10 to be exact, ahead of Outplayed Racing Covers. And you can see we actually have a new name with us for tonight. We have Shizu Facilio with us for tonight. He will be a reserve for these last 2 rounds, I believe. So we get to see a new face even late on in this F2 division, and we'll see how he does in his first qualifying of the season. You can see he's currently coming down through the final sector of the lap time and into the hairpin. Very heavy braking through here and just trying to get the car turned in before opening it up and using the curb on the outside, although he actually decides against that, so having a much tighter line through that hairpin. But now out of the final turn across the line, where will he go? It's looking okay, but it's not the best. He goes to P12 with a 1 minute 30.8, just behind Tails in P11. So obviously it's his first time in the session and his first time in the season as well, so we'll give him some time to get warmed up in this session. Meanwhile, his Shizu teammate Fede has just gone up to P6 with a 1 minute 30.5. That places him directly behind Enelar Keke. So everyone's setting their bankers now, and one thing to note, not a single driver has actually invalidated their lap time, so does not seem like track limits are a struggle at this circuit. And the main reason for that is probably because if you go beyond those track limits, you're either going to be going up onto grass or gravel, so you really do want to be avoiding getting close to those white lines, and there's not really too many turns where it would help you. Maybe through the middle sector, which Shizu Fede is currently going through on his cooldown lap. You can see these double left-handers coming up. That might be a position where you would extend the limits, but realistically it's not going to be a major struggle for any of our drivers tonight. So everyone coming back to the pit lane apart from EJ Dark, because he's gone out straight away and he's going for another lap time in the session. 1:30.1 is his quickest so far. And has he peaked at the beginning of the session, or has he still got more time to find on his second lap? And if he does, then it's going to be a scary prospect for the rest of the field to try and beat throughout this session. So ETA Dark looking extremely competitive so far in the first 8 or so minutes of the session. And we always know ETA Dark is a strong qualifier and has been doing pretty decently as well in the races, in recent memory at least. But let's see if he can get that pole position. You can see he's got the 2 Outplayed Racing drivers chasing him from behind. One of them on a 30.4, that's Max van der Gies, and the other on a 1 minute 30.3. That would be Covers 2:10, so he's definitely a lot closer than the rest of the field. And you can see the field spread is actually quite wide. I know it might sound a bit ridiculous saying that. From P2 all the way down to P16, 6/10 separating these guys. And you can see the clump where most drivers are close to each other is from Will Murdoch in P9 to Tails in P12. All of those guys separated by a 10th of a second. And I think you can see I'm definitely taking this division for granted when I say that P2 down to P16 being 6/10 apart is not that close. But maybe that just goes to show what kind of qualifying sessions we have in the F2 division. But ETA Dark is now coming out of the final turn to begin his second lap time of the session. And we're going to ride on board for a full lap of this Chinese circuit to see exactly what he can do. So through turn number 1, A very tricky turn. It seems to go on forever. You have to be playing with the brakes and the throttle at the same time before lining yourself up for the second turn of the circuit, or the third turn I should say. The first long right-hander counts as 2 turns. But then we come into this first hairpin of the circuit at turn number 6 here. And you can see your driver up the road there. Probably maybe got a little bit of decent or distant, I should say, slipstream from the man ahead, but probably nothing too major. We're heading through the middle sector now. You can see ET8 Dark struggling to control his cars. He really tries to push and beat that 1 minute 30.1. He is down, but only by 4/100ths after that mistake through the middle sector. Now he's just got to deal with another long, winding right-hander of turn number 13. And down this very long DRS straight, and you can see only opening up the DRS about halfway down. Even still, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of overtaking coming into this very turn of turn number 14. It's just a great place to try and go for a move and absolutely send it with some late braking. ET8 Dark using the full width of the track there on the exit to try and get the most out of his traction, but you can see through turn number 16 there, a bit of a mistake on the back end, and he only misses out on his time by 44/1000ths of a second, even after making that many mistakes on his lap. So that tells me that he's probably has the ability to go to a 1 minute 29 second lap time, which I'm sure the rest of the field is going to be slightly concerned about that. Tails has just moved up the order. He's gone up into the top 3 positions here with a 1 minute 30.4 second lap time, jumping all the way up from P11. That's a good time from him. Parno Racing, no, I think he set a second lap time. It's still a 30.5 for him on his 1 lap old soft compound tires. Here we go. ET8 Dirk has just gone to P2 with a 30.3, so he goes ahead of Outplayed Racing Covers and his old teammate. NLR Urpex setting a time, OPO, and so everyone improving by quite a bit. Maybe those first times just weren't very representative at the start of the session, and everyone's starting to get into a bit of a groove here. Outplayed Racing Covers now. He's trying to improve on his 1 minute 30.3. He's 2/10 away from that provisional pole time set by ETA Tech. Can he get himself closer, or can he even beat that time set by our current pace setter? Outplayed Racing Covers out of turn number 16. It's 1 minute 30.1, and he beats ETA Dark by 2/100ths of a second to go to that provisional pole position. And what's this? His teammate, Outplayed Racing Skyline, has gone to P3 with a 1 minute 30.1. So 3 drivers now are into the 1 minute 30.1 second lap times, and our top 3 are separated by 23/1000ths of a second. So those are the kind of gaps we're now used to in this division. Covers, Dark and Skyline battling it out for that provisional pole at this mid stage of the session, but we've only got 5 minutes left to go, so not really much of a mid stage, but now a late stage in this qualifying, as it seemed to fly by us. But right now, that battle for pole is looking very, very spicy between the top 3. But remember, ET8 Dark, he's definitely got a 10th or 2 left in the tank that he can try and use to get himself back on to the pole position and the front row of the field, although he currently is already on the front row of the field with this time that he set at the very beginning of the session. But let's see what he can do with the remaining 4 minutes and a half. We even look a little bit further down. You have ET8 Dark getting himself up into P4. OP Max van der Geest. He has improved, but only by a 10th of a second to go to 1 minute 30.3. And you can see that midfield battle, or at least the upper midfield battle, has definitely gotten a lot tighter as well, from P4 down to P7 or P8, I should say, separated by a 10th of a second. So there you go, looking like a really good battle so far, and we'll see how it continues. But yeah, everyone is super close, and I'm definitely looking forward to the end of this session. You can see a little bit further behind we have Lolo, who I believe has only set 1 lap in this session, so he's struggling to get a competitive time onto the board. But everyone else pretty close to one another currently, and half a second separating the entire field except Lolo. So all the way from P1 to P15, half a second between 15 drivers there. So a little bit closer than it was at the start of the session. But we now have 3 minutes and a half to go in this Chinese qualifying session. The driver's just patiently waiting in the pit lane, getting ready to go out at the perfect time when the track evolution is at its best. And you can see Fusilio coming back into the pit lane there. But now we see more drivers exiting the pits, and these will be the first final lap times of the session, which is an interesting sentence. But we can now see who is the first driver out of the pits. It's Will Murdoch, currently down in P15 with a 1:30.6. Plenty of time to find, but even improving by a tenth of a second at this stage would boost him from P15 to P12, gaining him 3 positions. So it's definitely not much time that he has to find to boost himself up the order. But he is obviously going to be gunning for the fastest lap time possible, and he's actually allowed Outplayed Racing Skyline to go past him. So Skyline will actually be setting the first final time of the session. So we may as well ride on board with him, especially since he is a threat for that pole position. Just 2 100ths away from his Outplayed Racing teammate of Covers, who's currently P1. So Skyline does not need to find much time, but that's just to beat the current times. Obviously, Covers and Dark, I'm sure they will be improving in the session and getting a better lap time onto the board. I saw someone predicting in the chat there that pole position is going to be a 1:30 flat, low flat time. So around a 1:30.03 or something like that. I think I'd even go a step further and say I'm predicting the time is going to be a 1:20.9 higher, maybe even a 1:20.9 mid, because I think these guys definitely have a lot of pace left in the car. So excited to see how this battle for pole is going to go out. Be sure to let me know actually who you think is going to get that pole position. I always try to keep up with the chat during the qualifying and the Grand Prix. But Outplayed Racing Skyline is now out of turn number 16, and he is getting ready to set his final time in the session. He's making his run down into turn number 1 here, getting the car turned in, also trying to carry as much speed as he possibly can, and then hitting that late apex, which sets you up for the second turn of the lap, using the middle of the circuit there, coming out of turn number 3, not staying too tight, but also not opening up the steering and going too wide. He's improving out of the first sector by 4 100ths of a second, and even that would be good enough for pole position currently. But now we head through the long left-hander of turn number 7 here, just keeping the foot flat to the floor as he goes through there at max speeds on these soft compound tires, getting up on the grass over the entry of the first of the double lefts, and then losing control of the car halfway through the turn. You can see the angry shake of the wheel. He's messed up his lap, and that is going to be the end of Skyline's session unless he can get across the line in time to set one final lap. But ETA Dark is right behind him, and you can see he hasn't made that mistake through the double lefts, not getting up on the grass, and that's a much nicer line through those 2 turns. Out of the middle sector, he's not improving. He's actually down by 6 100ths of a second, so this is even worse than his second lap time. So maybe Dark did peak at the beginning of the session. Out of turn number 12 and 13 here, and he's coming down this DRS straight. He's only got so many turns left to find improvement on that 1:30.1. You can see Skyline crossing the line now. His session is over. ETA Dark, though, his isn't, as he comes down into this 14th turn. You can see, well, Murdoch has just promoted himself to P4. He's improved by half a second there to get himself onto the second row of the field. ETA Dark, does he have any improvement left in him? No, he does not, and his session is over. But what's this? Outplayed Racing Covers is improving by over a tenth of a second coming out of the middle sector. Covers is looking so good so far. He might be on for a 1:29.9. Let's see what he does across the line. Now it's going to be close, but no, he loses all of the improvement out of the final sector there, and he stays on that 1:30.1. Max Vandige's returning to the pit lane. OP Johan is improving out of the middle sector, but are we going to see something similar like we did with OP Covers? Maybe we can. He just needs to nail this 16th turn. He could be boosting himself up the order by quite a bit. Now out of turn number 16 and across the line, where will Johan go? He improves by 0.2 of a second, which puts him into P6 in the session. Is anyone else still on a lap Fusilio coming into the pit lane, and so is Oliveira. That's the end of the session, which means Outplayed Racing covers will be lining up on pole position for tonight's Chinese Grand Prix in the penultimate round of the season 34. And you can see it seems to be quite a common theme in league racing, at least over the races that I've been commentating recently, that the guys at the top of the field in qualifying just struggle to find improvement at the very end of the session. Maybe nerves kicking in, maybe they just set their best lap times at the beginning. But either way, no one in the top three has improved on their time, but also no one has come into the top three apart from Skyline, Dark and Covers. So those times that they set at the middle of the session were good enough for those top three positions. And Will Murdoch, great job from him to get up to P4 at the end like that. So we have top six separated by 1/10 of a second. You can see why I thought the field spread was a bit wide at the start of the sessions. That is amazing to see. On the front row of the field, we have Covers and Dark, then followed by Skyline and Will Murdoch, with Tails and Johan on the third. ET8 Dirk and his old teammate Max van de Geest on the fourth row of the field, with Zane and Enelar Keke, the man P2 in the championship, currently in the fifth row. Urpek, our championship leader, and Fusilio, our new man, coming into this race in the sixth row. We have Diogo Silva and Null on the seventh, with Fede and Lolo Vera lining up on the eighth and final row of our 16-man grid tonight. And I will now go and check whether or not we're having a restart here, because yeah, it's obviously I didn't mention it at the time because it's it wasn't a real penalty, but Enela Keke, I believe it was, did actually get himself a 5-place grid penalty. Because obviously there's still a glitch in the game, even after how many patches, where if you block someone on their outlap when they're not pushing, you get yourself a 5-place grid penalty, which is absolutely fantastic. So just checking now what is going on exactly. But yes, we are. I think what's happening is we're staying in this lobby, and the lobby host will just use the exact same settings, and obviously everyone else is still going to be in the lobby, so we can just get underway nice and quickly. So everyone is just going to retire, and then we'll get hopefully straight into the race. It should only take a minute or two using it this way, so everyone having a little bit of fun. You can see the safety car within about 5 seconds has been released from the pit lane, so everyone's just going to go ahead and retire. You can see actually OP Covers, didn't even notice, but he's running an Audi livery for tonight, which is very nice. I see, I didn't even know that was in the game. There are plenty of colourful liveries, so we'll definitely have to take a look at them throughout the Grand Prix. But everyone is just going to retire from the Grand Prix, and we will be getting underway for the race pretty soon. And you can see a couple of the drivers still driving around. I don't know if they have the message or yet, and if they don't, I'm sure they'll get it soon enough. So while we're waiting for that, obviously, well, actually, something I should do is look at the tires so we can have a little bit of an idea of what the strategy might be like. You can see two drivers started on the mediums. I don't know if that's the game that's put them on that strategy, or maybe it's maybe they chose that strategy not knowing that you were going to have to retire. But either way, that might be a strategy call from some of the drivers, as Will Murdoch, the last man standing in this lobby, but he's now disqualified from the session. So that is going to be the end of that session. Hopefully the restart shouldn't take too long because we're still in the same lobby, but definitely very interesting to see. Actually, we've gone on board with someone who's on the medium compound tires, so that could be a strategy. I'd assume the soft compound of tire probably will not be utilized in this Grand Prix. I think most people will be going for that hard medium strategy, as it usually is at most circuits. So yeah, probably not too much that's going to be going on with the strategy. But we saw in qualifying, especially at that double left in the middle sector, I believe that's turn number 9 and 10, quite a few people struggling there. If you get up onto the grass on the entry, you can really lose stability in your car, and then you can spin for the next left-hander of turn number 10. So we might see some crashes there. Obviously, there's chances of incidents. That would be possible for releasing a safety car. So really the strategy can go any way it wants. So even if the drivers do all start on the hard and are aiming to go to the mediums, that might not be how it ends up going. So we might even see the softs or not. But speaking of our qualifying grid, we may as well talk about that. Obviously, on pole position, Outplayed Racing covers. I mean, he's done a fantastic job to get that pole. And time that he set in the middle of the session, so not even when the track evolution was at its best, which is definitely very impressive that he was able to set a time that quick. The same goes for ET8 Dark, who only set one time in the session. That was his banker, and it was good enough for P2. So Dark definitely has some very good pace at this circuit. Hopefully he can combine that with some consistency to get himself a good result here today. But one thing we can actually look at is the standings, because I would like to show you exactly what's going on with the drivers and all of their results. So coming into this round, you know, it's the last 2 rounds of the season. The championship battle is over, so everyone is just trying to compete to make themselves either a PSGL podium runner or even a PSGL race winner. So I think that's what a lot of these guys are going to be trying to be aiming for in these final rounds. And you can see quite a few race winners that we've had in this division. We have NLR Erpek, obviously our championship leader, the likes of NLR Keke, NLR Gabriel, who left earlier on in the season as he made the switch to the PC side of things. You have Max van der Geest, who's won 2 rounds this season, and he's only P4 in the standings. Obviously, he's missed quite a few rounds, but we know Max van der Geest is a very competitive driver. And even the likes of Shazoo Macho and who's that? That's ET Dirk, who's also won a race this season. So we've had... Sorry, my eye's just not working there. It is ET8 Dirk who's won a race this season. So we've had plenty of race winners, but there's also quite a few who haven't gotten race wins yet. One of those is our man on pole position of Outplayed Racing covers. He has got 2 P2 finishes this season, but he just has not got a win so far. So this could be his big day to get a win. ET8 Dark in a similar position. He's gotten some very good results this season, but has just never been able to put it all together and get a race win. He did get a podium all the way back in Silverstone. You can see a lot of finishes outside of the points and 2 DNFs as well. That is just his inconsistency flaring a little bit throughout those rounds, but you can see on his day a P3 finish, P4, P5. He's a very quick and talented driver. And then even our man lining up in P3 as well has not won a race. I don't even believe he's got a podium. I will check. No, OP Skyline has finished P4 2 times and DNF'd once. He is a sporadic driver in this division, so he doesn't race too much, but when he does, he is usually quite competitive in these Grand Prix. But enough waffle about the standings as we try to fill the gap in time as we wait for the lobby, because the lobby is now up and we're getting ready for the Grand Prix. But actually, before we do that, my little blurb on the side of the screen reminding me there, a quick word from our sponsors. That would be PSGL's title sponsor, GT Omega. You can actually get 5% off of your order if you use code PSGL at checkout, and that's off of any order. So if you want to get yourself something like a racing sim cockpit, and trust me, they are very, very nice indeed, you can get yourself one down in the link in the description and use code PSGL at checkout for 5% off. But enough about GT Omega. We are getting ready for the Grand Prix, and that was a very nice restart, probably the smoothest one I've seen so far. I know lobby hosts have definitely had their fair bit of practice with lobby restarts, so they're now mastering the art of a lobby restart after all the glitches and technical difficulties that we have to deal with, like the 5-place grid penalty glitch, which is not a fun one, but the lobby back up and running very, very quickly indeed. So we are going to get ready for the race now. The drivers, you can see it's actually a sunny day, so I think that obviously with the lobby restart, the weather has to be set to whatever it was going to be in the previous session, and that is a dry race, so probably not going to be any rain for this Grand Prix. It's going to be a nice sunny day here in East Asia. So these guys are lining up on the grid. Obviously they have to get themselves all set up, but we now have 4 and 5 red lights. They're gone, and we are away. What kind of starts it for our pole man of Outplayed Racing? Covers off at the line. He covers off ET8 Dark coming into the first turn of the lap time, using a tight line through there to stay ahead of the man in P2. But here's OP Skyline trying to go to the outside line of Dark. That turns to the inside for turn number 2, and he might be able to complete this move now, and he does, getting ahead of ET8 Dark. But he's not the only one. Will Murdoch has just slipped past the ET8 driver to get himself into P3, and then defending the inside line coming into turn number 6, and ET8 Dark not having the best of starts. In fact, he's even under pressure from OP Johan behind. You can see a lot of position switches. Max van der Geest is falling down the order. He's actually ghosted. He must have been caught up in an instant just a few turns ago. He's all the way down to P12, and you can see a battle ahead of him between Noel and Diogo Silva. He's trying to slip past, but you can see he gets blocked there by Diogo Silva, and Noel's now trying to go to that outside line of the WOR drivers. He makes a little bit of contact on the exit. Now, once again, they're going to go side by side, this time through turn number 11. You can see Noel super committed on the brakes, and he gets that job done ahead of Diogo Silva. Max van der Geest trying to get the better exit, but you can see Diogo Silva has just turned in on the Outplayed Racing driver, and that has lost him even more positions in the Grand Prix. Super unfortunate race start for Max van der Geest. You can see he's lost 5 positions off of this race start, and he's not the only one. Tails losing 9 positions, falling all the way down from, I believe, the top 5. I think that's correct. From P5 all the way down to P14. And Matt's taking a second there, but that is not a good race start for him. And then our championship leader, once again, for the 2nd week in a row, he's had to come into the pit lane for a front wing change. So, luck has not been on the side of our championship leader. I'm very lucky that this didn't happen to him earlier on in the season. He's already secured enough points, so this hopefully shouldn't worry him. And actually, he's decided to retire from the Grand Prix. So Erpek has retired from the race, obviously not too motivated now that the championship battle is over. But these guys are still battling away, as we see Lolo and Fede going side by side through turn number 7. And Lolo gets the job done around the outside. Fede had to think about that inside line. Decided probably not the best decision. He's going to allow Lolo to maintain that position for a little bit longer. But looking closer to the front, you can see there have been a lot of position switches. That's mainly been from Max van der Geest and Tails losing so many positions. And Max van der Geest, speak of the devil, and he's just lost even more positions. That's now 7 positions off of the race start. So just a terrible start all around from the Outplayed Racing driver, and he's not going to be too happy with how this has played out so far. But the only thing he can do is keep his head down and try to continue on in this race. And see, continuing to battle in this midfield, all these guys trying to get some points out of this Grand Prix. It's a very intense battle for P10, which Lolo currently holds, because he's gotten ahead of both Fede and Fusilo there. But you can see, moving back to the top 5, not too much battling actually happening in these positions. Everyone is quite tame, quite relaxed at this stage of the race, trying to keep themselves composed and make sure they don't make any mistakes, because they're all on the hard compound tires except for Lolo Vera, who's on the mediums. So at this stage of the race, they're not all too worried about gaining positions. Apart from Lolo, he's going to be pushing to the absolute maximum, and we've already seen some of the effects of that. because he's already moved up into the top 10. He's going to continue to hunt for even more positions. Currently his next target is Parnell Racing Knoll in P9 on the hard compound of tyres. And that's right on board with Lolo, or off board even. We get a nice view of the livery that he's running, a bit of a turquoise and black livery. And he's currently behind the Williams livery of Knoll in P9, using the slipstream down this DRS straight. Is he going to be able to get close enough coming into turn number 14 to go for a move? No seems to be the answer. And actually, there's a yellow flag up ahead. Not too sure what's happened there. Was there an incident that I've missed? It doesn't look like anyone has lost any positions out of that. But yeah, you can see yellow flags being waved there. There is an incident. That's Enilar Urpek. His car is still going around the circuit. It's returning to the pit lane, and Enilar Urpek's car seems to be a bit bugged there, as you can see on the minimap at least. His neon green car coming back into the pit, so I wonder if it's going to disappear or keep going. Maybe he just retired at a weird time. I'm not too sure. Nevertheless, his car just driving around the circuit currently. Hopefully it does disappear, because that would be very disrupting for the drivers to have a ghost car in your way, and sometimes the car doesn't even ghost. And you can see coming out of the pit lane there again, and it's still driving along. That is not ideal for everyone else, but through no fault of Enilar Urpek. Obviously, he didn't know his car was going to continue to drive around after he retired from the Grand Prix. So we have a nice little Enilar Urpek running his own Grand Prix, but he finally does pull off of the circuit. So his car is now out of the session, and no one has to deal with that anymore. But the drivers continuing on racing. You can see Fede and Fusilo switching positions there. So Fede is now up into P11, and Lolo has been pushing quite hard on this previous lap to try and get a bit closer to Knoll. This is now his opportunity to try and go for a move into turn number 14. Knoll defends the inside line. Lolo does not brake late enough, and he's not actually trying to go for a move through that hairpin. One man who is trying to go for a move is Enilar Keke on ETA Dirk, and he does so successfully, or maybe ETA Dirk has just allowed him through because he's coming into the pit lane. Has he broken his front wing here? As he's coming in very, very early on lap 5 of 28. Let's see, as he pulls into the boxes, his pit box at the very end of the pit lane. And I was very confused for a moment, because he has a Red Bull livery on. I wondered why his pit crew wasn't out already. But you can see the front wing is coming onto the car, as we must have been... that might have even been the incident right there between himself and Enilar Keke. Maybe they made some contact that I missed, but nevertheless he's into the pits, and ET Dirk now at the back of the field, and the only man to have a start worse than OP Max van de Geest. So Dirk, very unfortunate for him, but he is now at the back of the field. We see Lolo has been able to complete the move on Parnell Racing Knoll, and actually at a very unconventional spot. I think he made it into turn number 6, that is, the hairpin in the middle sector, and with no help of DRS. So Lolo has definitely got a lot of grip on the mediums to be making moves in the technical portions of the circuit, I should say. Getting my words completely mixed up today, it seems. But Lolo in the slipstream of Zayn ahead. There's been a move for the race lead. Skyline making a simple one with the power of DRS. And obviously DRS very powerful on this game, and if you mix it with a very long back straight like the one in the final sector, you're going to see easy clean moves like that from OP Skyline. OP covers though, catching right back up with the power with his own DRS down that pit straight. You can actually see the ERS levels are quite different between the top two. OP Skyline almost on max, but covers on 67% ERS currently, so he's obviously used quite a bit of it at the start of the session, and thank you very much for mentioning that. Jess in the chat there, did not have my audio on, but there should now be game audio. Very sorry about that, didn't even notice it at all. But OP covers in P2 currently now after being overtaken by Skyline. Then you have Will Murdoch in P3, 2.5 tenths behind these guys, and he's just searching for a way to try and get into the top 2 with the power of ERS or a DRS, because he's actually got plenty of battery to play with. He has not had to push very hard at all to make his way into P3 off of the race start. But look at this, actually. If we move a bit further back to P7, Lolo has actually lost a DRS to NLR Keke, so he's 1.3 seconds behind. So he's been able to get past both Noel and Zane, but it's come at a cost now, because he's obviously had to battle quite hard, and that's lost both him and Zane the DRS to the top 6. So Zane, who does have DRS, unlike Lolo, is going to make a nice simple pass, although maybe not so simple, because Lolo is going to go for a switchback after a mistake on the apex of turn number 14 from Shizu Zane that allows Lolo to get back in to P7 there, which is very fortunate for him, that mistake, although maybe not so fortunate, because obviously these guys want to try and work together to catch back up to the top 6, although Noel isn't getting that message because he's trying to get past Shizu Zane at any cost. As you can see, both of them clattering into the sides of each other, and Zane was that on purpose there at the end of the apex of turn number 3, just clattered him off of the circuit, and obviously wasn't very happy with the move from Parnell Racing. Now Noel is trying to sneak up the inside of Fusilo there into turn number 6, but maybe a bit too aggressive because he's a bit slippy on the rear end coming out of there. I'll lose some time relative to the man in P10. So you can see these guys are very, very aggressive with one another, and actually all that battling is allowing Lolo to try and slip away from these guys. You can see 8/10 is the difference between Lolo and Fede, and currently he's followed by 3 Shizu drivers in a row. So these guys trying to take over the division. It used to be Outplayed Racing with the most, and it still is actually, as they have 1, 2, 3, 4 drivers in this race alone. So Outplayed Racing definitely the most prominent team in this PSGL PlayStation F2, and both of their drivers currently battling for the race lead, as we see Covers re-overtake Skyline to get back up into P1. But the top 6 all staying consistent with each other, and Larkeke had a bit of a scare a lap or two ago as he did drop out of 1 second, but he's now back into that DRS, and quite comfortably so. 6/10 is the difference between himself and OP Johan. Same cannot be said though for Juventus Racing's Lolo Vera, who's in P7 and 2.3 seconds away. His medium compound tires are slowly falling off, and the pace difference between himself and the top 6, obviously Keke has the DRS, so it's a lot trickier to catch up, especially on the straight. That's where Lolo is losing quite a bit of time, probably about 3/10 for each straight, as the DRS is just that powerful on this game. And not only does he have to try and catch back up to the top 6 without any ERS, as you see his red light flashing, he also has to worry about pressure from Fede, Zane and Fusilo behind. So Lolo is in a very, very uncomfortable position. But even being in this position, he's still gaining time to the top 6. He's gained about 3/10 in this lap so far. He now heads through the double right. Well, it feels like just one long right-hander, but it is 2 of turn 12 and 13. But let's see now the gap, 1.8 seconds before hitting the DRS zone, and now you can see that gap climbing from 1.8 all the way up to 2.1, maybe even 2.2. 2.2, yes it is. So gaining or losing 4/10 on that straight alone. So that entire advantage that he had gained throughout the lap has just been lost in a single straight. So you can see why it is so difficult to catch up with those top 6. Oh, we're now seeing a move in the top 6 actually. ETA Dark is going to the inside line of turn number 1. Will Murdoch carrying maybe a bit too much speed? No, he's not, because he's trying to go for a switchback move, although that's not going to work because the next turn is a left-hander for turn number 3. So Will Murdoch maybe just deciding not to battle it. Obviously he wasn't too aggressive in his defense against ETA Dark, maybe just thinking that it's probably not worth fighting until you get onto those medium compound tires and you get on to the final stint of the race. So Will Murdoch, he's going to drop down to P4, and I'm sure he's pretty happy, well not happy, but he's alright with doing so, as he wasn't too unhappy with that move. So he holds P4 for now. He's just got OP Johan behind him. And very impressive actually that ETA Dark was able to get that move done. Probably actually had to use quite a bit of ERS. You can see he's down at about 50% battery. So he probably had to use a decent bit of energy to promote himself back up into the top 3. And just trying to get back into that P2 position where he originally started in this Grand Prix. Obviously it's not been the best of race starts, but he is slowly bringing himself back. OP Skyline had a little look into turn number 14, but decided it's probably not the best idea to take the lead of the Grand Prix so long as ETA Dark isn't forcing him to. The Skyline is going to hang in that P2 position. He's just going to continue to recharge the battery and stick behind our race leader. What you can see coming into turn number 1, it's even a little bit difficult not to overtake because you get so close just like that through turn number 1, and then ETA Dark is going to be on your inside if you make a mistake like that, which shrinks the outside for turn number 3. So you cannot be making mistakes when you're in P2 in the Grand Prix. ETA Dark gets the superior exit using a bit of his battery, and he's now back up into P2 where he originally started. So taking advantage of the mistakes that OP Skyline has made, and then makes one of his own through turn number 6, losing that rear end ever so slightly. Thankfully hasn't cost him too much. He's still in that P2 position, still ahead of Outplayed Racing Skyline, and onto the back of covers now. ETA Dark looking for his first race win in PSGL. He has got podium before, finished in P3 all the way back at the start of the season, but can he now improve his best result by 2 places and get himself into P1 in the race, because he's not the only one battling for his first race win. I think it's all drivers in the top 4 currently have 0 wins in PSGL PlayStation F2 in season 34, so for all these guys it will be a massive achievement to win the Grand Prix. And then you can see Johan and Keke are 2 drivers that are established race winners in this division. So we have a very, very interesting top 6 with Skyline almost looking to the inside of ETA Dark mid-apex there. But obviously does not have that kind of grip in his car to complete a move like that. So he's just holding behind for now. In fact, actually pulling out of the slipstream as to not gain too much time on the run into turn number 1. But you can see once again, OP Skyline, he takes a bit of a wider line through the first 2 turns and the first right-hander of the circuit, and that does leave him vulnerable to a move to the inside, as we saw with ETA Dark. So if he continues to take a line like that, we might even see Will Murdoch trying to sneak his way up that inside line and get himself into the podium positions in this Chinese Grand Prix. But currently, we are on lap 11 of 28. And approaching the halfway point, and usually these drivers want to get rid of the hard compound tires as quickly as possible, so we could be expecting pit stops as early as lap 12 or 13, although I think we'll probably see the majority of them on lap 14 and 15, and maybe even an overcut or 2 going on till lap 16. But the pit stops are definitely fast approaching. Lolo will probably stay up the longest because the mediums definitely have pace. You can see it gains time through the technical portions of the circuit, but then loses it all down this DRS. You can see from 1.9 all the way up to 2.2, but ETA Dark has just made the move for the lead of the Grand Prix using DRS, and OP Johan is going side by side with Will Murdoch here, trying to promote himself into the top 4. But Will Murdoch has the defensive ability to hold his line around the outside there at turn number 14 and maintains a top 4 position, but now he knows that Johan is on the attack and he's looking to make a move on the F2 man. So Will Murdoch has to have his senses about him when defending from Johan. Make sure he keeps nice and close to the back of Skyline ahead. So you can see people starting to get a little bit more aggressive, especially ETA Dark, who's gone from P4 all the way up to P1. But now that we approach the end of the hard compound tire stint, obviously you don't have to worry as much about tire wear because you're going to be getting rid of these tires pretty soon. So everyone just trying to gain some positions before the pit stop, especially since you don't know who your teammate is, so the further up the field you are, the better, because maybe ETA Dark and Outplayed Racing Covers, they could be teammates together. Excuse me. they could be teammates together, and if they are, and they come in on the same lap, then OP Covers is going to lose roughly 3 or 4 seconds, maybe even 5 seconds from a double stack. So yeah, you just want to have as much track position as possible before coming into the pit lane when you're using these multiplayer cars. Now down this DRS straight once again, it's lap 12 of 28, and the driver's definitely looking to come into pit lane, but who will be first to pull the trigger? We see Shizu Fede getting past Lolo there on the run into turn number 14 with the power of DRS. But now through turn number 16, who comes into the pit lane? And no one comes into pit lane just yet, so maybe my predictions are a bit wrong. Obviously lap 12 would be quite early to box, and I do believe the tire wear at the circuit is quite high actually. So Lolo, even though he's on the mediums, the tires that wear more quickly, he's still staying out after 12 laps on these mediums. The mediums are definitely durable relative to the hards. And currently he is P8 behind Shizu Fede, and Fede actually releasing a bit of pace here. You can see he doesn't have that much ERS, but he's gained about 6 tenths, 8 tenths now. So maybe Lolo has been holding up Fede this entire time, and as soon as Fede gets past Lolo, he's almost already into the DRS of the top 6. So great pace so far from Fede in P7 currently, trying to catch up to the back of previous championship contender NLR Keke, currently in P6. 1.3 seconds is the difference, and the detection point is on this next right-hander apex, and he's not within that gap just yet, so he's going to have to hang on for one more lap before he gets a bit of dosage of DRS, but that's if he can actually catch up. He definitely has decent pace at this stage of the race. Outplay Racing Covers is going to switch positions with ETA Dark once again. Skyline had an opportunity to send one, just like OP Johan does into turn number 14, and he really tried to send that one from far back. But at the end of the day, you can't really get a good exit when you go for a maneuver like that. So Will Murdoch once again approaching with a similar defense, just making sure that he gets a good exit and holding on to that P4 for now. So Shizu Fede coming on to lap 14 of 28, just before the pit stops, he has managed to get himself into P7. So Fede displaying some brilliant pace at this mid stage and the late stage of this first stint. Lolo on 13 lap old mediums, so he's going to be stretching them for a minimum of 14 laps. We know the mediums can go for 14, so surely someone has to come into the pit lane by now, as everyone's been leaving it quite late. I'm actually quite surprised that we haven't seen anyone come into the boxes, but we definitely have to see drivers coming in on lap 14 of 28. The question is, who is going to come into the pit lane? Maybe everyone just a little bit cautious about boxing, because if you do box and someone ahead of you is your teammate and he also boxes, then you're going to be losing time. So everyone definitely nervous about the pit stops, because their race could go from great to bad very, very quickly because of these multiplayer cars that we sadly have to suffer through. But we're now heading down this back straight once again. OP Skyline is very close to the back of ETA Dark. Is he looking for a move? He is pulling to that inside line, but he's deciding not to overtake. Definitely not worth it when the pit stops are coming up. But Output Racing Covers is coming out of turn number 14 and 15. Does he finally pull into the pit lane? No is the answer. So OP Skyline is going to take that opportunity and get himself into the boxes. NLR Keke is in a similar position along with Shizu Fede, Shizu Zane, and Tails as well, all coming into the boxes. So only 5 people into the pit lane on that 14 of 28. So you can see Lolo quite comfortably stretching those mediums for 14 laps. So I'm not too sure what the strategy is from a lot of these guys. Maybe, obviously I'm sure these guys have done plenty of race simulations, and maybe they know that the overcut is superior to the undercut. But we see Diogo Silva saying the fast lap of the Grand Prix. He actually came in 2 laps earlier, which I didn't notice. I don't know if that's due to wing damage, or maybe he's just gone for the undercut that I predicted at lap 13. Nevertheless, he's onto the mediums now, and he's into the battle along with Fede and Keke. So he's promoted himself up through the order by quite some margin. The undercut definitely very powerful if you need to gain some track position. But OP Skyline's come out ahead, 1.5 seconds ahead of Enel Keke. But he's also caught behind ET8 Dirk on the 10-lap old medium compound tyres. That is unfortunate timing for OP Skyline. And that is not going to help out his race whatsoever, as he's probably going to be losing anywhere between half a second and a second being stuck behind ET8 Dirk. You can see Enel Keke has already gained half a second, but now OP Skyline will at least get the advantage of DRS down this back straight, and you can see he flies past him even before the DRS being opened. But now that it is open, that will only help him further. Let's see, is anyone going to double stack? I didn't actually check for that at the previous pit stops, but we can now look. Is 4 pit crews coming out of the boxes? Yes, they are. So 4 different pit crews means no one has to double stack in these positions. So I don't think anyone in the field has actually had to go through a double stack there, and might be 1 or 2 drivers that I have missed. But actually, has Parnell Racing Noel had to go through a double stack? He might have. He's 8.9 seconds behind. Possibly had a spin that I missed. I don't know if he did. There could be so many things I missed. It's hard to keep up with all 15 of these drivers. You can see I'm struggling to do it again because ET8 Dark is on the outside line of Diogo Silva through turn number 3. Diogo Silva actually manages to get a better exit there, so he is going to get ahead, but not for long, because ET8 Dark gets a better second phase of the exit. So he's got the inside line for turn number 6. This isn't the only battle, and Keke and ET8 Dirk are going side by side through the 6th turn. Dirk on the 11-lap old medium compound tyres, just trying to hold his own but struggling to do so. And Keke now up to P5. Now OP Covers has to try and deal with ET8 Dirk and dispatch of him as quickly as possible as he heads out of turn number 10. And let's see what he can do coming into turn number 11 now, when OP Covers is all over the back of him. The grip difference is absolutely massive, so OP Covers goes for exit over entry, and he gets the job done mid-apex there. But Keke has actually dropped him by 1.2 seconds. That is not ideal for Outblade Racing Cover. Shizou Fede is now trying to get past ET8 Dirk. You can see Dirk using a lot of ERS. He's trying to gain back up to the back of Outblade Racing Covers, and he goes the outside line of Covers into turn number 14. And Dirk is trying to battle hard even on his worn tyres. Now following in the slipstream of Shizou Fede as they turn into turn number 14. Is ET8 Dirk trying to hold these tyres to the end of the Grand Prix? That would be quite a stretch. You'd have to be doing 22 laps on them, as ET8 Dirk just flew past him there coming into turn number 1, although he probably let him through, being ET8 teammates. So Dirk is now up to P7. He doesn't have to deal with an aggressive Dirk on defense. An aggressive defensive Dirk, you could say. But Dirk is now trying to go to that outside line of Shizou Fede into turn number 6. Has he got that kind of grip? He's got 1 lap fresher tyres, but at the end of the day, Shizou Fede is squeezing him to that outside line every day of the week, as Diogo Silva has managed to get past ET8 Dirk. Dirk is now side by side with OPO, and he's squeezing him himself to that outside line of turn number 7. But you can see he goes deep into turn number 8, and now he's side by side with Shizou Zane. ET8 Dirk is causing all kinds of headaches for these drivers, and now he just completely blocks Shizou Zane on the exit there, and you can see Shizou Zane giving him a bit of an unfriendly nudge there on the exit. Wasn't happy with that incident whatsoever, but yeah, not too sure what ET8 Dirk is doing, just causing a little bit of chaos, I suppose, as he's now down into P13. And hopefully he didn't cause any wing damage for any of the drivers. But we're now seeing some more moves. So OP Covers is overtaking Enel Keke. We're also seeing Dark with the inside line of Shizou Fede. Fede holding his own there, trying to push into the side of ET8 Dark. As you can see, these guys are getting quite aggressive, and maybe something we should have expected coming into these final 2 rounds. Obviously, championship's over. It's the final 2 rounds. Everyone is a little bit more carefree when it comes to rules, let's say. So everyone giving each other little nudges every now and again when they're not happy with something. But we continue on with this Grand Prix, and there's been so many moves and pit stops. I'm struggling to keep up with it, but you can see Shizou Fazilo has actually... No, he's just stopped on circuit. What's this for? Is he just... I think he's just allowing everyone through. So... yeah, I'm not too sure why that is. Maybe he's just decided that his race isn't in a good spot, and even if he did try battling, it wouldn't help him out either way. So Shizou Fusilo is obviously deciding that his race is pretty much over. And doing the exact opposite of what ETA Dirk did and deciding not to cause one bit of chaos. We drops down to P12, and that's a decent bit of sportsmanship there from Fusillo, just deciding it's not worth battling these guys, and I'm probably not battling for points anyways, so drops behind those guys. But now let's look at the orders. So we have Skyline's actually managed to get 1.8 seconds ahead of Outplayed Racing Covers. So Skyline has the lead of the Grand Prix and with a decent margin to go with it. But Keke has just hit into the back of OP Covers, almost sending him sideways on the exit of turn number 14. Covers thankfully manages to recover the car, but that has now extended that 1.8 second gap to 2.5 seconds, and in fact it's left Keke vulnerable to an attack from Dark behind, who goes to the outside at turn number 1. Keke trying to defend the inside, he's trying to carry the speed. You can see a little bit of contact between the two. Dark is really squeezing Keke to that inside there, and now with Keke's outside line, he's not going to have the sort of grip and traction to get back ahead of ETA Dark. In fact, he's got Will Murdoch behind him now coming into turn number 6, but Dark gets himself back onto the podium positions for the second time this race. Will Murdoch looks at that outside line and is trying to get himself into the top 4, which he was in earlier on in the Grand Prix. But obviously after the pit stops, he's dropped behind Keke, who went for an undercut strategy. You can see his tyres have one more lap of wear compared to Will, Johan, Dark and Covers, and the same can be said for Skyline. He went for a 1 lap undercut, and now he's 2.6 seconds ahead of Covers, even after being stuck behind the traffic of ETA Dirk. He's definitely driving with quite a bit of pace at this stage, and the ERS difference is also quite large as well, 50% for Skyline. Meanwhile, it's about 6% for OP Covers. And OP Covers doesn't have to just worry about his ERS levels, because he's also being overtaken by ETA Dark into turn number 14 there. Dark getting up into B2, and let's see what Dark can now do out in front. Can he catch up to Skyline a little bit? Currently that 2.5 second gap is quite steady at this stage of the race. Neither Dark nor Covers really catching up to it by too much. So Skyline is in a very, very comfortable position. He's just got to try and hold it for the next 8 laps of the Grand Prix, with Max Vandegee saying the fastest lap of the race. That would be on the soft compound tyres. And actually, look at this. Lolo stretched his medium compound tyres for quite some time, all the way till lap 17, I believe. At the end of lap 16, he must have come into pit lane for these soft compound tyres, and now he's trying to do, how many laps is this? 11 laps on the softs. Cannot imagine that working out too well for the Ventas Racing driver. And obviously with the overcut that he's gone for, he's lost a lot of track position, dropping all the way down from P7, I believe it was. Yes, it was P7, all the way down to what is now P11 on the soft compound of tyres. So Lolo definitely hasn't gone the right direction with his strategy calls. But we'll now focus on the top 5, because I expect there's probably going to be quite a bit of battling now that we're coming towards the end of the race. We have Covers into the slipstream of ETA Dark. He's got a lot of speed heading down this straight, and he's going to make the move. So is Will Murdoch. Will Murdoch is looking at that inside line at turn number 14. Can he make the move on NLR Keke with the inside line? And you can see he's got a load of grip going through there, and he gets that late braking move done on the NLR man to promote himself back up into the top 4, which he originally was earlier on in the session. So Will Murdoch once again driving a very, very good race like he did in Mexico, but OP Covers is now having to defend from ETA Dark, so he might have been able to overtake him down the back straight, but ETA Dark is driving with a level of aggression here, and he gets straight back past. Meanwhile, the gap between Skyline and Dark is dropping. It's gone from 2.2 to 1.6 in a space of a single lap time. So Dark is really displaying all sorts of pace at this stage of the Grand Prix. OP Covers just doing his best to stay with him, and he's doing quite a good job, to be fair. He did overtake him down the previous back straight. And then you can see Will Murdoch, NLR Keke. NLR Keke is actually struggling for pace here. You can see 9/10 behind Will Murdoch, and he only got overtaken less than a lap time ago. So has Keke got a damaged front wing? Is he just struggling with tyre wear? He has got one more lap of tyre wear compared to Murdoch, Covers and Dark. Shouldn't be too much, but currently he is lacking that little bit of pace. You can see he's not the only one. Shizou Fede also dropping out of the DRS. We now see Covers go to that inside line at turn number 14. Gets back past ETA Dark, or Dark I should say, getting those two mixed up. Can be quite easy, but Skyline and Covers are now separated by 1.1 seconds. So yeah, it's definitely come down by quite a lot. There's still 6 laps to go. ETA Dark is not going to be able to make a move this time into turn number 1 and 2. And now he's under a lot more pressure from Will Murdoch than he was previously. So Will Murdoch really trying to get himself into the mix here currently. Through turn number 3 they go. OP Covers leading the DRS train that goes down from P2 to P5, but trying to make it the DRS train that goes from P1 to P5, as he's almost gotten into that 1 second gap, and he now has, well, just for a brief moment, you can see 1.018 is the difference between the two. And let's see, through turn number 8, the detection point is on the apex of turn number 12, which is the beginning of the long right-hander that's coming up. So let's see, OP covers 1.1 second. He needs to gain some time through turn number 11 here. Let's see, can he hit his apex correctly? Yes, he can. Is it a good enough line though? No, it's not. So he does not have the DRS, and you can see even pushing on the exit. I had a little bit of a knock on the rear end there, so Dark is going to go for the move here with the DRS wide open, and you can see him making a comfortable move on Outplayed Racing Covers. Now he has his sights set on Outplayed Racing Skyline. ETA Dirk has actually crashed out of the session. That has brought out a safety car here in China on lap 22 of 28. And the first thing OP Skyline is going to do is dive into the pit lane for the soft compound of tires. So ETA Dirk, you thought the chaos that he had caused was over. No, it's not. He's going to cause just that little bit more by crashing out in the session at turn number 9, that is. And now the safety car has been released. Is anyone going to double stack? We need to keep a keen eye for that. Let's see, is there anyone double stacking? That's a green car. Shizou Fede is dealing with a double stacker. Someone's repairing the front wing. I believe that's OP Yoan. He's been driving with a damaged front wing. That's probably why he fell so far behind the guys he was battling earlier on in the race. But everyone now completing their business ops. Parnell Racing Knoll dealing with a fat double stack there. You can see his pit crew weren't even out of the garage there, so they had to make their way out and serve Parnell Racing Knoll. But he has now got the soft compound tires on, and now a classic ending to a league race here. We have a safety car at the end of the race. Everyone bolts on the soft compound tires, and now we have a 5-lap shootout. Everyone with equal tires, equal ERS, and yeah, it's just made the best man win, I suppose, in the battle for P1. You can see everyone in the top 5 unaffected by the pit stop, so they all maintain the positions that they were in. So we've got Skyline leading this Grand Prix with Dark right behind him. Then our pole man of Covers in P3 trying to gun for his first race win this season, with Will Murdoch doing the same in P4. And we have NLR Keke, the man who's P2 in the championship, in P5. And technically Keke could still challenge for the title, but he would have to win this Grand Prix and get the fastest lap, and also win next week's Grand Prix and get the fastest lap, and pray that Urbeck doesn't score any points. But regardless of championship implications, I'm sure Keke is still going to be trying to go for yet another race win in this division. I do believe it would be his 3rd race win. Just checking if that's correct. That is correct. He's actually gotten a podium in his last 3 races, or he's gotten a podium in each one of his last 3 races, so he's going to try to keep that podium streak up and get it to 4 races in a row. Safety car is going to stay out for one more lap, as you can see Parnell Racing Knoll actually slowing down on purpose, I think, to make sure that the safety car stays out for another lap, or maybe not. I don't know why he'd want to do that. But he is going to stay out. Shizou Fusilo is coming into the pit lane now. He must have forgot to box for the soft compound tires, or nevertheless it won't affect him too much because he was at the back of the grid anyway, so I'm not losing any track position from this. So he's in for the soft compound of tires now, and that leaves us with a total of 4 laps of racing once the safety car comes into the pit lane. So we're only going to have 2 laps of DRS. That would be correct. So that would be lap 27. It will be enabled, won't it? Yes, it will. Lap 27 and lap 28, we will have the DRS down the back straight. So, yeah, there's not going to be too much DRS coming into the play. So these guys are just going to have to push as hard as they possibly can to gain positions on one another. So it's going to be an interesting battle for these final few laps here. Definitely let me know in the chat who you think is going to win this one. I mean, Skyline, Dark and Covers, you have not been able to separate those 3 guys for the entirety of this Grand Prix. Even when Skyline pulled out a 2.5 second lead, they were still the same top 3 as they currently are. And then obviously Will Murdoch has always been there in the top 4, and Keke has been in the top 5 for most of the race as well. So I think the top 5, definitely every single driver has a chance of winning this Grand Prix. If I had to put it down to 1 though, I mean, that is extremely difficult to predict. I might even say Will Murdoch. To be honest, I know that might be a bit of a wild one, but I'll throw in my prediction now. We may as well throw in a prediction. Will Murdoch, I'm predicting for a race win here in China. But you won't have to hold on to that prediction for too long, because we are going to find out in about 5 minutes time who's going to win this Grand Prix. And a very intense 5 minutes we are getting prepared for. OP Skyline, I should say, is going to be leading us away for this safety car restart in his base livery. I think that's the basic livery that the game gives you, so he's not too interested in livery customization. The thing he is interested in is winning this Chinese Grand Prix. So you can see swerving the car from left to right, both Skyline and Dark, trying to maintain the temperature in the soft compound of tires. The safety car is into the pit lane now, so free to go, and he does go. He catches the ET8 Dark out ever so slightly, and Will Murdoch already on the back of Outplayed Racing Covers, but he's not able to stay that close through turn number 16. So into turn number 1, it doesn't look like anyone's shaping up for a move. Maybe Diogo Silva, but no. Max van der Geest looks the inside line, but Tails is swift in cutting him off as Max gets up on the grass and almost loses the car. But he is keeping it pointing in a straight line for now. No one in the top 5 switching positions just yet. Will Murdoch is definitely the closest, so to the back of Outplayed Racing Covers as they head through turn number 6. Although Covers gets a very nice exit out of there. Will Murdoch trying to use a bit of his battery to keep up with the top 3. But let's see what happens on this lap 25 of 28. It doesn't look like anyone's really trying to go for a move just yet. They're just trying to get a little bit closer to one another. Might even be waiting for the DRS to be enabled on lap 27 and 28. But now through turn number 12 and 13 still. No one close enough to go for a move. ET8 Dark is obviously trying to get into a position where he can make his way up into the race lead. But so far, the only advantage that he's got over Skyline is that slipstream, and it's not all too powerful. Might be gaining you a tenth, maybe 2 down that back straight. But once again, Will Murdoch, you can see he's getting very close to the back of OP Covers, so maybe I might be right in my prediction for the race win. He's definitely got some pace behind the wheel. He's just got to utilize that and combine it with some racecraft here to finish off a good Grand Prix. Through turn number 1 and 2 now, as we get very funky angles with the off-board camera. That's mainly why I don't use it. So Will Murdoch will ride on board with him to see how close he truly is to the back of Outplayed Racing Covers. And while we're looking at that, actually, Enela Keke is already outside of a 1 second gap, so he is really struggling with the pace at this stage and trying to keep up with these top 4 drivers. So maybe the safety car hasn't helped him out too much. He's having to use battery there. You saw out of turn number 6 trying to use a bit of overtake to gain some time. We now see Will Murdoch following closely in the dirty air of Outplayed Racing Covers, and still 2 laps have gone by now. We haven't seen a move yet in the top 5 and in the entire field at all. Actually, here's our first move that we're seeing. It's Fusilo on Lolo, and that's because Lolo has made a mistake out of turn number 10, which has lost him that P13 position. But let's see now down this back straight once again. ET8 Dark not using too much ERS, and he hasn't got that rear wing flap open, so he's not really able to catch up to ET8 Dark. And we have Will Murdoch and then Keke, who's still in P5, 1 second away. And someone actually mentioning there that Keke is losing time in the final sector, and that's actually correct because he was in the DRS in the first 2 sectors and then he loses it for that final sector, which is the worst place to lose it because guess where all the DRS traits are? In the final sector. So you can see now we're on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. DRS is now enabled, so hopefully now that should promote some overtaking as Lolo comes into the pit lane and retires from the session. Decides that he's had enough, and that makes it 3 retirements in this Grand Prix. Definitely have to keep a close eye on ET8 Dark. I'm sure he'll be shaping up a move on the back of OP Skyline. That's because Skyline will not be having any DRS down the back straight. Meanwhile, ET8 Dark will. So will he be able to make a nice simple move, or will he decide to stay behind the race leader and wait until the next lap? This was where a bit of tactical thinking is going to have to come into play. Into turn number 11 now, Keke does get the DRS through turn number 12, which is absolutely crucial in his hopes of keeping his podium streak up down the back straight. And for the first time on the soft compounded tyres, these guys have the power of DRS, and OP Covers is depleting his ERS completely. And was that the right play? He's trying to send ET8 Dark every which way, but it has not worked out at all. Dark holding a tight line there, making sure Covers doesn't get the switchback, and Covers has just gone to 0% ERS like that, and he hasn't even made the move. So that was not a good tactical play there from Covers. Meanwhile, the top 2 still have a little bit of battery to play with, 20% each. Currently, ET8 Dark in the strongest position in the top 4. And my race prediction for the race win in P4, he's going to have to make 3 moves in 1 lap if he wants to win this Grand Prix. But now, out of turn number 3, most people have their red lights flashing. You can see OP Covers has his red light flashing. OP Skyline, ET8 Dark, they're all very close to having less than 10% ERS, although at this stage they all have about 20% each. So ET8 Dark still in the strongest position to try and win this Grand Prix now. Maybe Will Murdoch can promote himself into a podium position as well. The last overtaking opportunity of the Grand Prix is going to be on the run into turn number 14. So these drivers need to make sure that they make the most of it now heading into the final sector of the lap. This is the last time we make our way through turn number 12 and 13. ET8 Dark looking for the race win behind OP Skyline. The gap currently 5.5 tenths, 6 tenths. It's going to start dropping now. The DRS is open. ET8 Dark's red light is flashing. Can Skyline hold on to this? It looks like he will. Meanwhile, Will Murdoch is looking at the inside line at turn number 14, and he squeezes Covers into the gravel there, and he loses the rear end ever so slightly. And now Keke is trying to get past through turn number 16, but at the end of the day, OP Skyline holds on to his lead, and he's going to come across the line to win the Chinese Grand Prix. And not too much friction there at the end of the race. Enela Keke finished behind Will Murdoch by half a tenth of a... Or not Will Murdoch, sorry. OP Covers by half a tenth of a second. Very close margin between the two. But OP Skyline wins his first ever Grand Prix in PSGL PlayStation F2 in Season 34. Congratulations to the former VIR man. He has just put on a very, very nice display, making his way from P3 on the grid to P1 in the race. And he's going to lift his trophy and his head high after that one. ET8 Dark finishing very close behind in P2. He just couldn't make anything work on those final 2 laps. And obviously Will Murdoch gets himself a podium. I believe it might be his first of the season, but obviously kind of had to push OP Covers off of the circuit completely to get that done, so might be a time penalty for that. OP Covers actually managed to get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as well, so he gets an extra point for that. After starting on pole position, though, he falls to P4. It might be P3, maybe even Skyline or Dark will get a penalty. I'm not sure if they did anything wrong, but you never know with race reports. Obviously, I'm sure I missed quite a few of the incidents in this race, but we can now take a look at the full final results of this Grand Prix. We have Skyline in P1 with Dark and Will Murdoch on the podium, then Covers following closely behind with Keke just half a tenth behind him. Then Diogo Silva getting into the top 6 with Shizu Fede and Shizu Zane in P7 and P8. Tails managing to get P9 with Max van der Geest getting a top 10 position. Then OPO managed to drop down to P11 with Noah in P12, Fusilo, Lolo. Fusilo finished P13, and then Lolo, Dirk, and Urpek, our championship leader, retired from the Grand Prix. But now it's mathematically impossible for NLR Urpek to lose the championship, so he has now officially won the PSGL PlayStation F2 championship, although you could make the argument that he won it quite a few rounds ago. But if I had to give one driver of the day today, it is actually quite a tough decision. I think I have to give it to Outplayed Racing Skyline. I mean, his strategy was quite amazing. Yes, I definitely have to give it to him. That undercut worked out fantastically. Had a 2.6 second lead even after losing it. The safety car came out. He had 0 DRS on the final 2 laps, and yet he still used his DRS tactically and managed to hold on to the race lead for those final 2 laps and go on to win the Grand Prix and get his first ever win in PSGL PlayStation F2 in Season 34. So, for that reason, I'm going to have to give him the driver of the day. So, congratulations to him, and also congratulations to both of our podium runners of ET8 Dirk and also Will Murdoch, who gets his first podium of the season. Not ET8 Dirk, ET8 Dark. Get those two mixed up again. But that is going to be it for this PSGL PSF2 Chinese Grand Prix in the penultimate round of the season, which means there's just one more to go. That will be happening in Abu Dhabi, a classic season finale for season 34 and the first season on the F1 23 game. I hope to see you all there next week at 7 p.m. And also, you can stay on the stream if you want. Once this stream ends, you will be redirected to the PlayStation F1 stream. And I believe the Grand Prix has already started, actually. They're probably on lap 2 or 3 by now. So definitely go check out that stream. I believe it's Jess and James taking you through that one. But this has been all from me. I've been your race commentator at More Games. I truly do hope that you enjoyed this race. There was a decent bit of action throughout it. But that's going to be all from me. I hope to see you all next week. And for now, it's goodbye from me.
He's got the inside, Orpheus is through on the left-hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Orpheus now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the ghost is back. Jarno Orpheus wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.